All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mateus Mula channel. Today we're going to be talking about Rocket Lab. Their earnings come out tomorrow, Tuesday, November 12th, after the bell. Very exciting time. The stock obviously has performed quite well. Let me just pull it up really quick and show you guys. We actually hit over $15 in pre-market, and at some points during the day, we had $15, but we are hanging out about $14.98. What does that mean? What does Mateus Mula think is going to happen? Well, I do hope that we do have a bit of a pullback here. And you can see I set up some reoccurring investments in here. Just $100 every couple weeks just to keep on top of it. But of course, I have my main shares in my Fidelity account. Don't have any at the moment in Rocket Lab. If any of you guys are interested, I appreciate some of you guys reading the Rocket Lab article that I had wrote here on Seeking Alpha on August 26th. A lot has transpired since then, but a lot of this material hits home as to why, and I think there's a bullish thesis for the stock in general. We probably won't touch on all of it today because we'll be touching a little bit more about specific items around 3Q, but thank you for the 350 people that follow me and the kind words. Over 7,000 people have read this, and so it makes me happy. It's a different outlet for me, and if you guys are really interested, please let me know if you really enjoyed the article in the description of this video, or the comments of this video would really help. Didn't want to show anything from the YouTube. Don't know why I have this tab open. Otherwise, maybe just noting the Archimedes full testing engine. I would play this. However, there's there's copyrighted music, I should say, associated with this. So unfortunately, can't share that. But interesting to hear about this launch your career with Rocket Lab. Didn't watch this one yet, but if anybody's interested, looking for work, please go ahead and do that. Before we hop into the actual earnings and what is expected, I want to note that there were 3 launches as expected during the third quarter of 2024. There was the Alpha One for Owl, first inspective on the 3rd of August, and 7 days later, A Sky Full of Stars for Capella Space. And then also, Kines killed the Radioed Star on the 20th. The 20th of September. Sorry about that. All of those from Launch Complex 1. So that will be the total launch amount that we should be receiving. Now, of course, we just did a launch here, but this is changes in latitudes, changes in attitudes. This will be for a Q4 release. So what I do want to say, I did note, or did see rather, that there are 2 upcoming launches. Well, one has been announced, another which has been speculated to be a haste mission on November 19th. So shout out to Space Docs and a few others that have been reporting on this, Modbox, etc. You guys rock. Keep me up to date because I don't always have the time to keep up, and so being able to read your guys' material is great. Haste is basically using a electron rocket for suborbital launches to test hypersonics for NASA, other clients, Department of Defense, etc. So this basically says they have some scheduled for Lidos and support for a upcoming thing here. But I do want to note there are plenty of other things in here that really we could talk about in terms of what is still up for upcoming for Q3. So maybe before I hop into that, let's just look at what numbers are expected for Q3. And I think a lot of you will be underwhelmed. I personally think that this will be a kind of underwhelming quarter with respect to financials, because I think that at this point we're recognizing and going forward with how much and how fast the company is growing forward. And at this point, the revenue is not caught up with it as of yet. But I think in next year, you'll feel very confident. And then the year after, in 2026, when we actually get multiple Neutron launches and everything the like, you'll start to see way more revenue. And hopefully by the end of the year, end of the decade, we see north of $1 billion in revenue. Financial outlook is 100 to 105 million. If I remember correctly, we were just above. Actually, let me just pull this up on the fly. Investor relations. I had this number. Oh, that's Palantir. Had this number not too long ago, and I think it was 58 or 68 million. The numbers are slipping me there, but if I remember correctly, here it was. Financial summary table. Man, I thought they just had it. I don't have it ready for you, boy. I'm unprepared, so I'm the one that's slacking. So let's go down to the earnings. So 68 million. Okay, so that, let me just do some mathematics here. Let's just say on the low end, we grew 47%. And I think when I did the numbers last time, it was 55%. So basically 47 to 55% year-over-year revenue growth, which is down comparatively to the year-over-year revenue growth that we had in 2Q. I think that was north of 70%. I think it was actually 80%. So at this point, we're starting to flatline this 105 million, which is okay in my opinion. So space systems will be the majority of that, almost 80%, if not more. And then you also have the 3 launches that we talked about for 21 million showing up here. The thing that I'm mostly looking at is gross margins. Are they continuing to stay consistent? I don't think they have a graphic in here. Maybe they do about gross margins and how consistent they've been over the past 12 months. But my hope is we maintain that. And then non-GAAP gross margins north of 30%, which is phenomenal. Because I think at the moment they're kind of aiming for that 30% mark for a lot of things and hoping eventually they get north of 30%. The hope was for space systems, Solero, all the legacy contracts eventually roll off, and we really get to a place where on a non-GAAP basis, everything is showing up north of 30%. Expected GAAP expenses, 80 to 82 million. So if you talk about non-GAAP, you're talking about 69 to 70 million. So a lot to potentially get involved with. So let's just do some quick math here. So if you're talking about 100 million, 105 million, non-GAAP of 30 to 32%, that's 30 or so gross margin. Reduce out your operating expenditures. That's where you're getting your adjusted EBITDA loss of about 30 odd million. You do have some interest expenses here of about $1 million, but average share count's just under 500 million. So easy way to think about that, if the stock price is $15, then just divide it by 2 pretty much, because you basically have 500 shares outstanding. So instead of dividing it by 1 billion shares, you divide it by 500. And so that gives you an idea as to, divided by 2 basically. I'm sorry, I'm late. Divided by 2, so that way you can basically say, well, you have half of 1 billion shares. You're at $15 billion market cap. Divided by 2, it gets you a 7. Sorry, ignore that. $15 share price. What does that mean? 500 million shares. Divide the $15. Whatever, the 500 shares, sorry, $500 million by 500 shares, 15 shares, whatever. I'm losing my mind. Don't listen to anything I just said for the past 20 seconds. The thing that I'm mostly looking forward to, apologies for me kind of misspeaking there, the review of the backlog. So at $100 million a quarter in terms of run rate, that's $400 million a year plus that you're going to be using from the backlog. And currently the backlog sits at just under 1.1 billion as of the end of 2Q. My hope with that is obviously you continue to increase, but not only do you have to increase the backlog, but you have to fully offset the volume that you're going through. So as we expect to ramp from 100 million to 150 million going into next year, which is hopefully the run rate as we exit next year. Granted, I don't think we'll have a lot of Neutron contracts. That's why, you'll probably mostly reliant on the space systems business. But as you roll into 2026, you'll start to maybe see some of those revenues grow associated with Neutron contracts. But at the moment, you kind of just have this 1.1 billion. So you're really just trying to offset the 150 million or so in revenue that you get and also grow that. I think that where we need to be, and I think the short term, is they want to get to 2 billion, obviously to help offset a lot of that near term runoff, because basically what they're saying here is 44% of the backlog is going to be realized in the next 12 months. So if you take this 1.067 billion times 0.44, they're assuming 469 million in revenue kind of going forward in the next 4 quarters. So obviously some of that's going to be this quarter. So 100 out of that 467 million is going to be in 3Q. I anticipate you'll see maybe 100, 110 million in the fourth quarter, hopefully associated with more launches, which we've had one to date, and hopefully we'll have two before the end of this month. So fingers crossed on that. So hopefully that'll get us closer to 100 million. But if you have 2 or 3 additional launches going into December, exiting December, then you might get an additional, 10 or 15 million dollars, depending on the cost of those and when they were signed up. So that's kind of my hope. So on top of this, I really want to see this backlog increase. I don't think, and this is probably going to be a sore point, I don't think there's been anything announced as of yet where we could add significantly to the backlog. And I think that that's going to be a sore point. I don't expect the backlog decrease per se, but I haven't heard any MDA contract awards or Neutron. And what I could think is potentially that could come as a late announcement, in the earnings call tomorrow. And with that, then maybe I'd be surprised. But at the moment, I haven't heard anything. Generally speaking, from my experience, and granted it's been a short amount of experience comparatively to how long the company's been public, since 2006, to give some people some reminders, generally a day or two or a week before they announce certain things, so it's not like a surprise during earnings call. So really what I'm expecting is in the earnings call, if it's not going to be huge backlog updates, I'm expecting to hear a little bit about Escapade, what's going on with that. I'm hoping to hear a little bit about this thing that Vince had kind of brought up to my attention with respect to Lane 3. They basically are bidding for a Phase 3 Lane 1 program, which is basically National Security Space Launch, NSSL. And this piece is needed to be prepared and ready by December 2025. So with the announcement that Rocket Lab is intending, it seems to me that they believe that they are on track for a mid-year 2025 space launch. And so that will be ready for a end of year 2025 potential launch associated with this. So that makes me hopeful. Obviously if they weren't bidding, then it might be not a guarantee, but something that would be in the back of your hat to be like, hey, what's kind of going on with this? And then another piece that I wanted to kind of see is, do they have an update on, obviously they have a whole bunch of different things that they showed in the Q2 earnings, hot fire, etc. Do they have a long burn? And I would love to see like a long burn video. I would love to see something burning for say 2 to 3 minutes. Have they gotten to there? I know that they have gotten at least the 5th engine off the line. That's part of the benefit of the gamble that Rocket Lab took. They basically said, we're just going to come up with, we've done this before, we've built engines before, we know what we're doing. And this 102% throttle means they were within 2% margin of understanding what this rocket would be able to output. So to me, phenomenal job, guys. The thing that kind of gets me fired up is they basically said, well, we're not just going to like create something and Frankenstein it. We're going to create the production line and go. And luckily, everything seemed to be working, maybe a few tweaks here and there, but overall, they can basically just go with the production line now. They don't have to go and create a factory or a production line to be able to get these engines out. The production line's already created. So my hope is maybe a little bit of a timeline associated with what is left. And then going back to what happened in Q3 last year, if you guys remember, let me pull up that presentation. They were kind enough to provide, well, hopefully they give us this Neutron sort of development thing like they had done in the past. So hopefully we can kind of see what's going on with that. But they gave us a 2024 manifest, basically showing what they were expecting. So in terms of what they were expecting for Q3 this year in 2024, they hit the nail on the head. What they didn't do is get a haste launch off, and neither did they do a recovery. So in that respect, you could maybe hit them with a ding if you want to. But to me, I just care about the launches getting off. To me, I wouldn't want to focus on specifically recovery missions. I'd rather get Neutron off. If you think about recovery is a long-term thing for Electron. Electron's not going away. So to me, Neutron at $50, $55 million a pop, more important than perfecting recovery for Electron, right? I don't want to be penny wise and a dollar foolish. I don't want to split the team on focusing on recovery versus when they can focus specifically on Neutron. So to me, Neutron is MO, or it's not the MO, number one priority comparatively if you were to say split. What they were expecting was 8 launches in Q4. So if you think about it, where are we in terms of the year? So by this point, we were supposed to have, 5 plus 6, so 11 launches through Q2. So it actually wasn't awful. Then through Q3, we've only got to 11 launches to date. So technically we're a little bit behind. So you should be at about 14. We're at 11. And then through Q4, you're supposed to have 8 launches. Well, we've only done 1, and there's about maybe 1 or 2 announced, one being a HASTE, one being a regular Electron. So we're missing, right? We're at 12. We should be at about 22. So in this particular case, we were behind by 3 coming out of Q3. And now we're even behind more just based off the fact that it doesn't seem likely that we'll get 8 launches in Q4. But I could be pleasantly surprised, so we will keep our eyes peeled associated with that, and hopefully we hear more in the coming months. Maybe we have a crap ton of launches to be expecting in December. It could be fireworks for New Year's, who knows? So my anticipation is we have one for 2025. My thought process is, and I kind of said this with Vince on Rocket Lab Weekly, is I would love to see this number climb up to closer to 30. And reason being is in my anticipation, if you have 30 particular launches on the schedule, yes, some of those people might miss, but my hope is you get closer to 20 times launched next year. To give you a thought process of where we are today, we were expecting 22 launches in 2024. We're currently kind of on track to be at about 14 to 17 or 18. And if you get to the 15 that they were alluding to, that's a 30% off of where we were expecting. If you get to 18, that's about 15% off. So anyway, you're between 15 to 30% off on your forecast associated with it. So to me, if you book for 30 launches, which I anticipate is maybe what's going to happen, my anticipation is that you'll end up getting about 25 to 20 launches out. 20 launches would then, of course, be a 33% miss on that promise. But if you get up to 24, 25 launches, then that is, pretty close to what is that? 83%. So pretty good, 17% off comparatively. So that's my hope, as you get 30 in terms of missions booked, and then you end up getting, in terms of actual missions completed, is 20 to 25. Now, of course, my anticipation is a lot of that's going to be delayed due to partners, but hopefully we can kind of simul stack some of these windows and be able to get multiple partners for multiple windows, and eventually, if one drops out, another one can backfill. So that's kind of my thought. So in terms of everything, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, the one thing that I also wanted to, I did say a little bit about Escapade. I do want to hear an update on Escapade. For those who don't necessarily know about what Escapade is, it's basically the two satellites that Rocket Lab had created for Blue Origin to launch to Mars. And so it's twin satellites for University of Berkeley. So one is, I think, gold, one is blue. I'm going to get the names or numbers, the colors wrong. So scold me in the comments. That's fine. But to me, I think the most important thing is understanding whether or not that goes off. I would love to see that flow in the first half of 2025. But to me, I think that this is going to be, unless there's some big announcements with respect to increased launch cadence, increased backlog, more information on Neutron, whether it's a hot fire complete, like an extended hot fire test of 2 to 3 minutes, or there's a larger static test of the whole integrated Neutron vessel to be tested, which I would anticipate maybe 1Q of next year, not necessarily 4Q, but you never know. Unless something big like that happens, to me, it just seems a little bit tough to anticipate you're going to have a blowout quarter. It's going to be more par for the course, but I would love to be pleasantly surprised. And just full disclosure, I said the same thing for Palantir, and the stock went up 50%. So I don't necessarily want anybody to lose money, but my hope is that there is a pullback. I love the company. I would love to own more percentage of the company. I forget how much I own of the company. Let's take a quick look. Sorry, that's a spindrift there. Not sponsored, but would be willing to be sponsored. I own 0.005% basically of Rocket Lab. And so I would love to get closer to 0.1%, but of course that's a lot of money that I don't have. But at least before I die, I would love to get to 0.01%. What is that? 1/1000th of the company? Something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's 1/10,000th of the company. I'm not good with numbers. You guys know that. But my hope is continued success, and my hope is I can continue to buy more and more shares. Whether that ends up being buybacks in, say, 5-10 years' time, not today, or let's say dividends where I reinvest, etc. My hope is that I can eventually get to a 0.01%, but it would be nice to get to 0.1%. But knowing 0.1% at, what is that, a $7.5 billion market cap, 0.001, I'm not good with math, guys. Yeah, 7.5 million. I don't have $7.5 million, so I currently can't get to 0.1%, but I could potentially get to 0.01%. That would be pretty dope. I just pretty much have to double my current position. So anyway, hope this video finds you guys well. I'm trying to think. The last thing that I forgot to mention, which I want to mention, is I still hope that based off of where we were in Q2, let me pull this back up actually. I don't necessarily need to show it, but where were we in terms of cash? I think we were at 546. So knowing that we have about a 31 to 33 million burn rate, I still hope we're north of 500 million. My only hope is if we are below 500 million, it's because we bought assets from some sort of company that is going belly up, and we're picking it up for pennies on the dollar. So anyway, that's my thought. My thought process is it's going to be maybe a little bit of a pullback, but I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. My maybe bias of wanting to pick up more shares is leading me that way. But as always, I think it's great, especially all of you newcomers into the stock, support the company. These guys are rock stars and they're executing like champs. And really looking forward to seeing you guys on the earnings call tomorrow. Be sure to hit the notification button so you guys are aware. When we go live tomorrow, we'll probably be live a little bit early to be able to read through the deck before the actual call, which is at 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern, which is 2 p.m. Pacific Time for you friends on the California coast. I'm going to see if Vince wants to do it with me, but you never know. He hates me, just kidding. But he also might be out of office because of having another baby. So don't want to steal the spotlight, but that's the truth. So anyway, you guys rock. Much appreciated. Let me know if you have any thoughts about anything in the comment section down below. And I was telling this to my boy Steven Fiorillo on the phone. It's like, man, I was like, everyone's all hyped up. My ex has done extremely well over the past few weeks, and you guys are obviously blowing it up, and I love that. Much appreciated. I'm having fun with it overall, and that's the big thing. But I can't wait for the haters to come out of the woodwork, man. If this thing pulls back 30, 40%, I'm going to be excited. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need the money today. I'm not looking to retire today. I got many moons down the road. I'm not talking about 20 years or anything like that, but I'm not looking to retire today. So I'm looking to buy more shares. So in my opinion, I would love for the haters to come out of the woodwork like, I told you, bro, you're broke. You don't know what you're saying. I don't care. I would love it. I'll be laughing because, I don't care if the stock's $15 today. I'm looking for what it's going to be in 2030, right? And hopefully you guys that are listening here are not necessarily for the stock, but for what the company can provide and do today comparatively to what it can do in 2030. It's going to be a magnitude difference. And to me, the stock price is just going to be a measurement of what the company is able to produce and do. And these guys are maybe not number one to do it, but they're number two, at least in the US, and number three worldwide comparatively if you use launch as a metric. But to me, that doesn't include the end-to-end piece. And these guys are absolutely killing it from a space systems end-to-end piece and only getting better. So Anyway, I'll stop rambling. You guys rock. Talk to you soon. Cheers.